you.
Well, there are a couple questions I have on the management update. So what's that, 4.5, which I noticed, Emma, when you're on the agenda, it doesn't have the item number. I didn't see it anyway. When you're on the agenda at the first page, it shows the number, but when you're actually in the packet,
as a header.
it is. I don't see it.
Because now with the Civic Plus portal, the left side panel navigation bar should always be available.
Download it as a PDF, so.
Right, so it doesn't come with that anymore.
Right.
Let's
I'm seeing it, Tom.
Okay.
let's chat after the meeting and we can take a look together.
Anyway, 4.5 or 4.5.
4.5, okay. If there's no other requests to pull consent item, we'll move to the next item, which is public comment. This is time for the public to comment on items not on the agenda. This is also a time for the directors if they want to make any announcements or comment on items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public? I think everybody looks familiar, so, okay. So now we'll bring it to the board. Do you have anything?
Yes.
Oh, good, I'm looking at you.
So I was watching something on YouTube TV and saw an advertisement for Water Smart from Scotts Valley Water District. And I wonder, whether or not that's a good idea for us to do something similar. I have a feeling, and it was very targeted, I think, to this area, even though the show wasn't something about this area. So just a heads up to our outreach people, maybe they could look into that and see whether it would make sense to do something similar.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm taking this all as a no. So we will move on to consent items. With one of the items pulled, item 4.5.
I'll move approval of the remainder of the consent.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Director LaHue, second by Director
Alboni.
Alboni. I'm put on the spot. This can be a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. So now we're at the reports. Does District Council have a report?
Good evening. I just have a brief one. It's actually an update on a brand new Prop 218 decision related to water rates. The board may remember that when we were going through the rate process, we were watching two companion cases out of San Diego, which dealt with tiered water rates and peaking factors and a number of other issues. And the initial decision in that case came out a couple of months ago, the Coziar decision. The companion decision, the PATS decision was just released and takes a similar view of tiering and peaking, as did the Coziar decision, in a way that's frankly unfavorable to public agencies and imposes increased scrutiny on the calculations of those water tiers in ways that we just haven't really considered previously. I think this case is something we'll continue to watch. It's likely that the city will seek review with the California Supreme Court, and I think given the unique way in which the appellate court looked at these issues, it's possible, perhaps even likely, that the Supreme Court will grant review. I would note that as it relates to our water rates, these cases do not affect the validity of our water rates. As the board's well aware, and just for the public's benefit, the board proactively sought court review of our rates, and the court affirmed that our rates are valid and will remain so during the remaining periods of the rate schedule. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'm reading my directions, sorry. So does this mean that a public member could make a comment at this time, or?
Yes, Chair, if there is a public commenter who wishes to speak on my report, that is technically permitted.
Okay, is there any member of the public that would wish to speak on the report by district council? No? Okay, so now we'll go to business items. It's okay, I gotta find my way through these pages. The board is now considering agenda item 6.1, public hearing and consideration of accepting the 2025 triennial public health goals report. And we have a staff report from Cara Clark.
Yes, I'd just like to introduce Kara Clark. She's our water quality program coordinator. She's been able to come in her short time with the district to the board, and previously when we present our annual consumer confidence report. And tonight, Kara is going to present another annual report, which is the triennial public health goal report.
Is the mic on?
Hello? Oh, there we go. Great. Thank you for having me. So I don't have a extensive presentation or anything, but I wanted to bring this report before you. It's a triennial report, so it's required every 3 years. And it looks at all of the water quality elements that we monitor relative to the public health goals. And I was pulling up the report here in the attachments. It talks about, why we have to do this report, and what are public health goals, which water quality data we considered, how we use some guidance from the Association of California Water Agencies to help guide crafting this report, because the legislation that requires it doesn't have a lot of detailed information. And then we detail things that were found to be over the public health goal levels. They're all well under the maximum contaminant level. So we are certainly in compliance. These are not enforceable levels, but we for transparency and to meet these requirements, we submit this report. I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
Okay, at this point, I'm opening the public hearing and receiving public testimony. Is there a member of the public that wishes to speak on this matter?
Thank you. Good evening, Becky Steinbrunner. I was curious why there's no mention of 1,2,3 TCP or hexavalent chromium in any of these public health goals. Those are two issues that are quite concerning within the district, and I didn't see any mention of that in this report. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, I need a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Okay, so the motion's by Dr. LaHue and the second by Dr. Jaffe. All in favor? Aye. We actually have to vote, right? Yeah.
If there's comments.
Is that possible?
Just to open the
close the
public
business.
hearing.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to comment until it's open.
Aye.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. So at this point, we have the public hearing and closed, and we can discuss any questions board members have.
Okay. I just wanted to say, just to clarify, the district is in full compliance with all enforceable state and federal drinking water standards. But I wanted to note that there are no California water districts that are in, across the board in a compliance with the public health goals. So that's just interesting, I thought. And then also, I just wanted to point out in section 6.3, trihalomethanes. The results are well below the regulatory limits, but they are far above the public health goals. So that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, since you looked at me. So it is a bit confusing. The public health goals are at one level, and then the MCLs, the maximum contaminant limits, are at a different level. And it's over the years, I've come to learn that the difference between the two is really when, because of feasibility and costs. So when it's feasibility, I support that. If it's cost, I've always come down on the side. If there's something we can do that costs money, that increases the quality of our water, and it's not an exorbitant cost, which is subjective, then I think the district should be doing it. So I just wanted to state that. I think our staff is aware that this board through the years has come, basically aligns with that philosophy.
Thank you. Is there any? Oh, good.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Kara for a well-organized and complete report, so thank you. And also, public goal, you mentioned two reasons for kind of the public health goals not being achievable. The only other one I was just going to mention is sometimes they're not even measurable, not just feasible to treat, but they're setting them at a really aspirational level that might not even be measurable at that point. It's kind of a theoretical amount that could cause one case in a million or something like that.
Yeah. One case of cancer, right?
Yeah, and this report is more of an aspirational report, isn't it? It's not what we need to do to be in absolute compliance. We are already in compliance. These are just chemicals that we are looking at and working at, investigating treatment possibilities that would be affordable and go into that cost benefit advantage, or I guess you call that ratio, becomes advantageous at some point, and then we could impose a treatment on it. So that doesn't, we are already doing that with things like TCP. So this is not in this report.
So is there any input to staff or?
I think I would just like to add, as you all mentioned, this is more of an informational item to the public for transparency. It is required every 3 years that agencies of our size and larger put together. This report has been in front of the board for, it's every 3-year run for a number of years. It includes the information of the data collected. And Kara, if you do want to kind of address like why Chrome 6 wasn't in there, I'd love for you to answer that. But it also includes, as part of the requirements, exactly what you talked about. There is a measurable risk associated with bringing the treatment down to a public health goal. And then, of course, that would then also be translated down to the cost of the treatment. And that does weigh heavily on water agencies. And that's why, as regulations move forward in subsequent years, these reports have to be reevaluated, and we'll continue, and you'll see new constituents coming forward on future reports.
Okay, Kara?
Yeah, just to address the CRIM 6 constituent. So the data that was considered for this report is all data that was collected for compliance purposes. And there was no requirement to monitor for CRIM 6 during this period of 2022 to 2024 when we collected the data that was in this report. So there's just no data to include, which is why it isn't in there. But we have started collecting required CRIM 6 samples this year, and so that will be in the 2025 Consumer Confidence Report and in the next triennial Public Health Goals Report as well.
Thank you. So at this point, do we have a motion to accept the 2025 Public Health Goal?
I would like to make motion 3 too.
Oh, so you do have something to,
Well, I'd like to make what I said as a philosophy, as a direction to staff, that I'd like to direct staff to look for ways to decrease to lower the concentrations to get closer to or meet public health goals. So I'd like staff to be on the lookout for new treatments and cost-effective treatments for the constituents that we look at.
I'd second that.
I'd like to make another motion for 4, though, that we accept the public goal report.
well, we have to do that after.
Oh, we have to vote at each one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Do we have to close the public hearing too? Or
It's already
we
closed.
did that, gotcha, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a voice vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we need a motion. I guess we could have added them to each other to accept the 2025 Public Health Goal Report.
So moved.
Just a second.
Second.
So you can second. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Motion by Carla Christensen, second by Tom LaHue. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is 6.2, adopt resolution 2515 for award of construction contract for the sewer lateral repairs in the city of Santa Cruz and find no further environmental review is required. And this will be presented by Taj Dufour.
Good evening. Thank you. Yeah, as part of the Pure Water SoCal conveyance project closeout, the district's responsible for bringing approximately 47 sewer laterals into compliance with the City of Santa Cruz criteria for sewer lateral repairs. And so we solicited bids from 3 contractors, and they're listed in the memo. We received lowest responsible bidder was ENS Trucking, and ENS Trucking has worked for the district in the past. They're on our list of approved contractors, so we're confident that they can perform the work. It is for a price of $792,960. That works out to about $16,000 to $17,000 per sewer lateral, and that includes excavation, repair, and paving, all for 47 sewer laterals. We are also asking the board to consider a 10% contingency that would be at the discretion of staff when and if an unforeseen situation occurs. We just would rather not have to come back to the board for that. We're looking to get started next month in September.
Okay, Okay, thank you. Is there public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. So I assume the city of Santa Cruz has approved using this contractor?
Yes. And they will be performing inspections. There's permits that are required. The contractor will obtain the permits, traffic control plan, and then also the city will perform inspections.
Anybody else have a comment?
One other, and they have a good record, they have a good reputation in Santa Cruz.
Yes, they do.
And the city approves is the main thing.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
All three
Three
motions.
motions, yeah.
3 motions, okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, we will move on to the next item, which is receive an update on the Santa Cruz Mid-County Regional Optimization Study. That's a mouthful.
Thank you, Tosh, for
So, Alyssa,
Is there
there you are.
opportunity to load the slides because there's animation?
good.
Okay. We're going to take one quick break. Sorry about that, Emma. I forgot to tell you that.
Feel guilty using plastic.
Oh, yeah.
Will you pour me some too, please?
Are you going to email it or a jump drive? Oh, perfect. Okay.
I did. You guys didn't hear me.
Thank you for your patience. We do have some slides that have a lot of graphics on there, and so we did some animation that is in PowerPoint, but then we sometimes save the file as PDFs, and the PDFs are just like static. So Emma's gonna give us the PowerPoint file, and we'll load it up on here, and then I think it'll help with your presentation journey.
You're not going to go get the Kodak carousel? Yeah. Plenty of those. What do you think it is? It's probably cooling off now.
Yeah. We'll see. The sun's also shining from
Set a fan at the end of the yeah. I might circulate. You see what we've been seeing? We've been down towards us. Seascape.
This would be the week that I take my kids to college there, and it was always so hot.
There must be a lot of fish out there.
Okay, we are nearly there.
Okay.
She's gonna drive for me, so I'm gonna switch spots. Melanie?
We typically have one technology challenge when we're here at Capitola, and Emma reached out to me today and said, everything's great. And then we throw her this slight curveball with an well, she still was able to navigate through. So thank you, Emma, for that.
Thank you.
This project is a big collaboration, so this is in the spirit of the study.
I'm just going to introduce again Alyssa Abbey, who is our staff analyst. Both she and Emma have assisted on the optimization study over the last 2 years in conjunction with Shelley Flock, our water resources manager. And we also have in the audience today Heidi Luckenbach from the city of Santa Cruz. This is our second presentation on the optimization study. We did a presentation back in May of 2024, and now today is the presentation related to a nearly final draft of our analysis. And then once Alyssa goes through that presentation, I have a very short kind of summary presentation related to how the optimization study is also feeding into some regional collaboration efforts. And as you may recall, we did have Heidi Luckenbach present on the water supply augmentation implementation plan that the city is doing. She presented back in October, and we are foreseeing that she'll be coming back this fall to do an update on that. But here, I'm going to start. Thank you, Alyssa.
Good evening, everybody. I'm excited to bring this update to you. I know it's been a while and we've done a lot of work on it, and so we're excited to show you some of our kind of high-level takeaways from this study. And this optimization study, as Melanie said, has been going on for over 2 years, and it's a really collaborative effort between our agency, the City of Santa Cruz, also the Regional Water Management Foundation. And this is all possible because of a grant that was received by from DWR. So this was a Sustainable Groundwater Management Act implementation grant. And so we have our groundwater sustainability plan, and this is a multi-factor grant to help support actually implementing some of those. It's an accomplishment to get one of these plans even approved, but now we actually got to start working on the components. So one of the components of this is the Regional Water Optimization Study. And the purpose of the optimization study, the real big picture, the real driver of the whole grant and all of the components of this project is to implement our approved GSP so that our region can have a safe and reliable water supply available for everyone who relies on water from the basin now and in the future. And that's really our big picture driver. But the study more narrowly identifies how we can use existing project and management actions in that GSP to first and foremost achieve and maintain groundwater sustainability. It is a groundwater sustainability grant. And then secondarily, to improve regional water reliability. The existing PMAs that were included, PMAs being those projects and management actions, are Pure Water SoCal on the district side, and then the city's Aquifer Storage and Recovery Well Project, or ASR, and then water transfers between our two agencies, with the overall project goals being that sustainability of the groundwater and regional water supply reliability. That map is just showing kind of a broad overview of some of the existing infrastructure that is being considered in this project. And this is a continuation of years of planning and collaboration between the district and the city. And this graphic is busy, but it's busy for a reason. It's showing all of these actions and that the district, city, and MGA have been working on in parallel since 2013, and it's been a lot of work. So the one that we just highlighted is our regulatory institutional milestones since 2013. This is showing a lot of the work that was done on the groundwater sustainability plan. And then the next one is we're kind of highlighting the year 2015 as showing there's the parallel paths between the district and the city. In 2015, we completed our community water plan, and the WASAC was formed for the city. That's the Water Supply Advisory Committee. And so we both started kind of going on our own journeys after the desal project was paused in 2013. But then along the way, you know, we were pursuing these parallel paths, but we were still collaborating, and these are all showing points in which we had to reach agreements and work together on our shared goals. And so the optimization study is just another part of this relationship that we have with the city. This is kind of a just broad overview of the study process for the optimization study. And the different components of the project were broken out, and the work was described in detail in technical memos. And the task one involved just data collection, identifying gaps in our knowledge. What did we want to focus on in this study? And that's summarized in technical memo 1. And then task 2 was development of the alternatives. And what we call an alternative is a specific combination of those project and management actions, so pure water, ASR transfers. And I'll show those in the next slide. And a lot of this work was done with Montgomery and Associates using a machine learning guided optimization model. And we also had hydraulic modeling done as part of that. We last came to you with an update at this point. That was kind of the first half of this project, is just identifying what those alternatives were. And then task 3 was so May 7th, 2024 was when we kind of came with those. That was TM3, TM2, and TM4. All went into that. The next step was the technical analysis of the alternatives. So that was even furthering refine what those alternatives looked like. Hydraulic modeling and water quality were tied up into that. And then we moved on to, okay, now we know what the alternatives are, but we need to evaluate their feasibility, their benefits, their costs. That was TM6 and TM7. And so that further gave us more understanding of what those combinations of PMAs would really mean. And so now we're at the final report. So we're bringing all of that together. And that goes into a little bit of next steps, possible implementation, things like that. So here are the alternatives. And so I did include as an attachment to the item some slides from the last presentation that summarized each alternative. But we're going to just briefly go over it now. And so, yeah, this is our graphic here. What this is showing on the y-axis, that's the aquifer storage and recovery. So as you go up, it's going from...
Listen, let me just ask, Emma, how do I move this bar again? There we go. Thank you.
So alternative A is kind of what it's our future baseline with a limited transfer. So this is showing an existing Pure Water SoCal facility or existing capacity with existing ASR for 4 belt swells. And so, and that is limited transfers between the two agencies constrained to the current intertie capacity. I'll keep talking about alternative B. That is what is our expanded ASR track. And so that would be an existing Pure Water SoCal volume and treatment capacity, but with a moderate expansion of ASR. So that would be 1 additional ASR well. And that would be a slight expansion, or that would be increased transfers between the agencies. And then alternative C, there we go. That's an expansion of Pure Water SoCal and ASR. And that would include 1 new Pure Water SoCal seawater intrusion prevention wells and 1 new ASR well. And that would increase the transfer capacity. That would be the largest total transfer amount between the two agencies. And then alternative D is the largest expansion, which increases Pure Water SoCal and with 2 new SWIP wells and 2 new ASR wells. And there would be an increased transfer capacity. This option's similar to alternative C, but the increased recharge capacity decreases the need for as large a total volume of transfers between the agencies. The groundwater modeling was a crucial component of this effort, which is why we wanted to reiterate this, and so you have it top of mind as we go through the rest of the slides.
I think the take home on this slide is as we look left to right and from down to up, the project increases in size is one take home on that. And the other part is the direction of the arrow. So the arrow is representing the water transfer. So you can see in the alternative A, it's going both ways. And then B, C, and D is going only to the left, which represents it's going to Santa Cruz.
Yeah, that's a good point, Melanie. The alternative A was the only one that included the transfers to the district from the city. And based on the modeling, that would be a very limited amount. The takeaway from TM3 is that there are a lot of options for collaborating on these PMAs to achieve the goals of the project. Groundwater sustainability is achieved in all of these options. Only alternative C and D fill the the expected supply gap for the city in all years. This isn't a deal breaker for those alternatives. The primary driver of the study is groundwater sustainability. So we did carry forth these 4 alternatives for further analysis.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So if you want to go back to that last slide, so even with A and B, it seems like it could affect groundwater sustainability if there's still a water need gap, and then the city would have to use their Belts wells more than they would otherwise. There might, I don't know, just wondering.
I think the way, and I know you guys are familiar with the groundwater management agreement we have with the city and the district, but this is based upon the modeling that Cameron and Montgomery and Associate did, where we are ensuring that the basin is meeting sustainability. So however the extractions are, he's included that, but still holding that the basin can meet the goal by 2040. Yeah.
Just have to limit what they pump out. Okay, got it.
And what level of sophistication are these alternatives evaluated with regard to climate change?
They were run using the climate catalog model, I believe. And then Montgomery and Associates also did some comparison to how it compared to the climate model that the city uses. So it was definitely looked at from those perspectives.
It was examined then.
We ran several different climate scenarios on top of this model. That is why it took a little bit longer than we had originally anticipated in the groundwater modeling task. And Heidi is here if maybe at the end if you have specific questions related to that.
Well, just, there was a TAC, I take it, for this, Technical Advisory Committee.
There was a technical advisory committee of both the city's groundwater modeling and hydrologists, the districts, which is Montgomery and Associates, and then we had a consultant that looked at the hydraulic modeling, as well as our owner advisors for, I'm sorry, really. And then just, one more point. There were technical advising teams, both from the Brown and Caldwell as well as Kennedy Jenks.
There was not an independent technical advisory
No.
committee member like we've had in the past with people from UC Santa Cruz and whatnot.
We did have a UC Santa Cruz professor on the technical group, but it was all professional services, not an outside
Oh,
independent.
so you're talking about Brent Haddad then?
Yes.
Yeah, so it wasn't technical.
Right.
We probably should save this for when it's our turn to ask questions rather than before public comment.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Bring this meeting to order.
So that's kind of our, that was our big takeaway from the work that you had been presented last year. And so now I'm going to jump into those next technical memos and our big takeaways from those. And so these technical memos 4 through 7 all kind of funneled into our understanding now. And like I said, the hydraulic modeling and water quality also fed into just the creation of the alternatives. Just a brief introduction onto what hydraulic modeling is. It's how water flows through the system's pipes, pumps, valves, storage facilities, all of our infrastructure based on factors like demand, pressure, elevation, and this is important to predict the system behavior, and so that we can look at things like water age and velocity of the water through pipes and whatnot. And it's very complicated. This is just one of the graphics that I pulled from our technical memo 4 that is showing water age going throughout the city of Santa Cruz.
I think this was a really important component that complemented the groundwater modeling. This was really, I think, the core of the technical work that came out of this project. We spent a lot of time with Cameron Tana presenting on the groundwater modeling, but the hydraulic modeling is really how do the systems connect with each other? How does the water move from within both of the districts and the city of Santa Cruz, ensuring that we have adequate flow, we have water for fire protection, ensuring that we still have water pressure for our customers and their customers. One of the things that Melissa also brought up was about water quality and water age. Through this kind of modeling, you're not only just looking at certain settings, like she mentioned, flow and pressure, but you're also able to track the water quality, which was another component that was analyzed in our study.
The big takeaways from this is that fully meeting the supply gap for the city of Santa Cruz would require an intertie expansion. And even in the alternative that requires less transfers in order to meet the maximum transfers in the driest proposed or expected years would require an expansion. And then refining locations of any new infrastructure like the Pure Water SoCal SWIP wells or ASR wells could help to reduce that infrastructure need. It also informed the water quality. This was technical memo 5. And so that focused on when our water systems are connected and transfers are occurring, how does that change disinfection byproduct formation and corrosivity? And the takeaway from that we got was that all of the alternatives are feasible from a water quality perspective, that nothing stood out as not being able to be treated. There's already a planned treatment in the city of Santa Cruz for some corrosivity, I believe. So that was good news there. The next one, this is going into TM6, which is our financial and economic technical memo. And so it's focused a lot on the costs and the benefits of any of these projects. And the benefits, as they were quantified, we did work with Dr. Brent Haddad at UC Santa Cruz. And the benefits were quantified as the benefits of avoiding curtailment in the city. And so that was any curtailment that was a stage 3, 4, 5, 6. And there was a large benefit expected from this analysis. And this analysis didn't include Pure Water SoCal as already quantified. This was just looking at anything being done additional. So, and then additionally, benefits to the district of any of these alternatives were also not assessed as part of this Opta study.
The technical team had discussed quite a bit whether or not we should include the economic benefits that were previously calculated for Pure Water SoCal. You may remember when we did that several years ago, it was at about $900 million in economic benefits of building Pure Water SoCal. Since that's already been calculated, we didn't want it to be like double counted. And since this was more of an additional improvement to the regional water supply, that was not incurred in this. Also because of the way that we were analyzing the project costs and not including some of the project costs that were already realized.
And one thing just to note is that because alternative C and D, they avoided all impacts from drought curtailment because they were projected to fill the supply gap 100%. Those are expected to have the greatest benefit. Moving on to costs, obviously, as the complexity of the project goes up, costs increase. One thing to note is that the costs in this analysis are costs that wouldn't be expected to be borne by district customers because the primary benefit would be to the city's water supply. And when we look at this cost-benefit ratio, all of the alternatives are well over 1. And so that's what you're looking at to show that the overall benefit is going to outweigh the cost of implementing that. And so because all of those values are so strongly over 1, it really indicates that any of the alternatives could bring value.
Question on that.
Yeah.
Seems like everything's very close.
Yeah.
So why is it so close? I thought there was different costs for alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, there are different costs, but the benefits are also different. You know, the cost of alternative A is lower, but so are the benefits because it doesn't completely meet the supply gap. So they all just kind of end up being similar.
Look close because they're billions of dollars rather than.
Right.
Scale is pretty big.
Oh, I didn't read that. Thanks.
Anyway, let's keep going, but to get to public comment.
And then this is from TM7. That was our celery analysis. So that's social, environmental, legal, regulatory, and institutional. So those are all of these other considerations that we wanted to look at when we were looking at the alternatives. I'm not going to go over every single one of them because the takeaways from a couple were more notable. One of them is just for environmental and regulatory. That's something, you know, we have to consider when looking at these. As the amount of infrastructure in any alternatives goes up, the amount of environmental review and regulation goes up as well. And then I'm also going to just briefly touch on institutional. This was something that we discussed a lot, just that any agreements to do any of these projects or to do components of these projects, there would need to be agreement between the city and the district for any of the alternatives, and that is ongoing.
Right. I think one of the things that we know takes time is the interagency agreements between agencies when you're collaborating on projects.
And so the next steps, project is nearly done. Our final report is due September 30th to DWR. And then we do plan on continuing our collaboration with the city and with the Regional Water Management Foundation. And when all of the report is complete, it will be made available.
Thank you, Alyssa. As I mentioned at the beginning, we just have a couple of slides, just how this kind of dovetails into what the Opta study was meant to do, which was what are the next steps. And we know that in addition to the optimization study, there continues to be collaboration and evaluation with the city of Santa Cruz on their studies and efforts. So as you may remember and recall, when Heidi Luckenbach came back in October, she presented 3 different portfolios. I'm not going to go into all of those. She went into some detail at that last meeting, but really where the efforts and kind of the focus goes from the Opta study into the water supply augmentation implementation is in looking at the portfolio 1. Portfolio 2 is also on the table by the city of Santa Cruz. That includes an alternative water supply with direct potable reuse. And then alternative 3 was desalination. But really focusing on that portfolio 1 and really, again, trying to take that one graphic and make it a little bit more user-friendly or understandable, which still I feel this graphic still has a lot of information. Again, this is how the City of Santa Cruz and Squirrel Creek Water District are partnering on Pure Water SoCal. The wastewater from both of our agencies goes to the centralized Santa Cruz wastewater treatment plant. Then that water, water goes to be recycled at the purification facility that we're building. That water goes into the ground. It goes into the groundwater basin. And again, the cycle continues with us providing a seawater intrusion barrier, but also providing drinking water to our customers. If we look again at the two agencies, by layering the city, every time I touch that, we look at the City of Santa Cruz and their water supply, where they're getting surface water and using groundwater to feed their customers. We overlay that slide that I just showed, which was our water cycle to our customers. The component that we've been talking about with the optimization study is providing that arrow or that amount of drinking water over to the City of Santa Cruz. In that visual that we had presented in October from Kennedy Jenks and with Heidi Luckenbach, the other component that the city is looking at is collaboration with putting water into the Scotts Valley groundwater basin and providing more supplemental water supply. At this point, that's as much as the district wants to really talk about that, and we invite and welcome the City of Santa Cruz's presentation in the fall, where they can give more of a broader update.
Melanie, on your diagram, can you bring it back up? So is there an arrow from Pure Water SoCal if there was expansion of the plant directly to the city?
Yes. Yes, there would be. If there was expansion of the facility, we still would need to talk a little bit more. And there was a really great question about the project definition of the alternatives that were identified. The project's alternatives right now, that what we did in the Opta study, is at a very high level of concept. It's about a 10%, 0 to 10% design. And so how we expand the project would still need to be discussed. Pure Water SoCal and its expansion, more recharge wells, how that water is going over into the city.
But there would be an arrow directly from Pure Water SoCal to the city if it was direct potable reuse. Then.
If it was direct potable reuse, the current scenario, and I don't want to speak out of turn for the City of Santa Cruz, the other portfolio projects they would be building them themselves.
Okay, so when it involved Pure Water SoCal. Okay.
At this point, we're not discussing that.
Okay.
Okay, now that we've concluded the presentation, is there any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner. I've been wondering when the public would see this. And I request that all of the technical memos that you've referred to in your presentation be made publicly available. Otherwise, I'll file a Public Records Act request to get them, because this is critical information that should not be just summarized or put in a graphic. The public wants to see these technical memos. So I would appreciate receiving them and seeing them on your website. I remember what I don't see in here is any reference to the current groundwater levels. I do not see any reference to the AEM studies and how that all fits in. Maybe it's part of the technical memo that talks about groundwater modeling, but that wasn't really part of what I saw you discuss tonight. It was more hydraulic modeling, which you did a great job explaining the difference. Thank you. But we still need to see the groundwater modeling. And the reason I say that is because I remember when Mr. Cameron Tanna said in this 2018 that if Pure Water SoCal and the city's ASR projects operate concurrently, we will see water coming to the surface. So that's got to be part of the modeling, and that needs to be discussed. I really do not, I still take exception with Mr. Haddad being the economic expert for the Pure Water SoCal benefits. That was pretty ridiculous. And the fact that Mr. Cameron Tano was the peer reviewer of that was ludicrous, in my opinion. So I think you should get another person to evaluate the economic benefits. And I really think it's time to look at consolidation. I really do. Thank you.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Now that I've closed the public comment period and I open the floor for director comments and questions.
I'm assuming, we'll get the final report and be able to read that. And then we'll probably get more, unless Heidi has something to offer now, maybe we'll wait until she comes back in October.
I had a few questions on a couple of slides and maybe I'm sure there's a good reason, but one of the suggestions is rather than saying the supply gap is filled, maybe you should just say 8% remaining supply gap, because that was kind of confusing. And I think that's what was intended, right? They still have a supply gap of 8%, and the other one was like 20-something percent.
Correct. Yeah, it's not saying that there's 70%.
Right, but it's just, you have to think, and when you have all these numbers up there. The other one is that it said that with the addition of the second pure water project, the last one.
Alternative D.
However you count them, yeah, that it's supposed to provide 500 acre feet, can you show it? But when I add up the numbers, I think maybe it wasn't clear. See at the bottom, it says 600, adding 600, but when you add 600, 400, and 1,500, you get 2,500, right?
That's the 600 over the 1,500 acre feet per year that Pure Water SoCal is currently sized for.
Okay, so it's okay. That was where I was a little confused. Okay, I see that. So the alternative D is not going to include what's already in alternative C.
Correct. Yes, not additive. It's going from the baseline project.
Okay, so I was seeing it as being additive. So, okay. No, that one's just my brain. But those were the only questions or suggestions I had.
Thank you.
I think making it clear that there's a supply gap, it just was, yeah. Anybody else?
I'm kind of confused too about the transfer and the size of the intertie. Like, how much bigger would that have to be to do this, to transfer that kind of water to a city?
Yeah, I don't have exact numbers top of mind. It is all laid out in technical memo 4, and that involves the expansion to the intertie, and it also involves upsizing of piping that would need to happen to accept that quantity of water, pump station upgrades. Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot recall off the top of my head what those numbers are.
It's pretty theoretical at this point, so I'm not trying to pin you down on that, but I just was like, what is that? And then the other thing I was interested in was the transfers to SoCal Creek Water District, because that was part of whether that, it says it's only allowed in alternative A. And that, but I was just wondering why only in that, in that scenario, because it was something we have been investigating in the past, and theoretically we could have much more available water. Does this mean that the city would be laying off their drawing of water from their surface water areas?
My understanding from when the groundwater modeling was done is that it was just shown that there was very few years that a significant amount of water could be transferred to the district from the city. And so that it just wasn't really feasible as a supply option in the other alternatives.
Well, I understand that. We've already seen that evidence in our own history the last 10 years. We've been able to get very little water because of drought and different other environmental concerns. So no, I don't understand. So would that be off the table in the future then? Or is that assuming that we wouldn't even need it? Or
Right. And I would say, just in terms of the transfer question, the transfer expansion or the upsizing of the interties would, from what I remember, is about double or triple the capacity. We have interties with the city of Santa Cruz in different locations. There is one kind of in Capitola that basically is more of like an emergency. We were looking to see if we could expand that one, but that's more of a localized. If there was a main break in that area, we could open it and it can kind of dribble out. The primary transfer that we would use is the O'Neill intertie, which we were looking at during that pilot of going water in our direction. For the water transfer for a larger one, and why, as you get into the bigger alternatives, the city of Santa Cruz just needs more water during their water shortage needs, and the analysis just showed that the reliability of the water from them and the amount of water that we were looking at being able to produce from the other alternatives was more in that one-way direction.
and I had one other question too, and that is actually the feed water from Neary Lagoon, from the wastewater treatment plant to Pure Water SoCal. There are a number of reports from the water reuse conferences, the meetings that we've been attending, reporting a decreasing, as drought goes on and water conservation goes on, there's less of a source of wastewater to be treated than purified and I just wonder how that would factor into this plan.
I think we're only using half of their capacity.
Currently, that is true, but we're going to max it out.
Yeah.
So is that in there as a consideration?
Right, availability of the wastewater as a source water is the same a little bit as raw water sources, whether that's surface or groundwater. As conservation goes down, your wastewater will go down because of use, but also the need of the water goes down a little bit, right? So it's a little cyclical. We will and continue to evaluate adequate supplies, whether it's from the wastewater for the Pure Water SoCal project or just treated groundwater or surface water for our customer needs.
Now, there's a lot of questions. It'd be really interesting to see how this development. I mean, I think that's the future. This area is ultimately is a lot of cooperation and integration.
Alyssa wrote down a note that I think is a good point too, just related to the intertie sizing.
Yeah, just that as the city utilizes more ASR, they need water for their ASR, and so there's less water available for transfers to the district. So that's another reason that it's not shown in the other alternatives.
And then there wouldn't be any point transferring ASR water back to the district either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you for the presentation. I look forward to the report. It's month away. And the way you framed it with two purposes, with the water supply gap during dry years for the city, and for the other purpose was for sustainability of the basin. So I look forward to in the report that the effect of all these alternatives on the sustainability to the basin, in particular, long-term sustainability. 2040s are, we have to reach sustainability by then. And as part of that, I look forward to a discussion of the assumptions made on climate change and how that will affect the sustainability of the basin with these different alternatives. And the other thing is how, when there are dry years, how the district and the city pump differently, and what effect that has on the sustainability. What I don't know what the city's plans are for pumping during dry years for the Belts wells. I'm sure they've changed since I've been on the board, but I'd like that to be part of the report to help evaluate sustainability of the basin.
Okay, this is an informational item only. Are there any other questions before we move on? No? Okay, so then we'll move to the next item, which is receive update and presentation on Santa Cruz County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan Project. I'm trying very hard to speak into the... They're trying to...
I think I've got it, right? Yep, that's it. Okay. Good evening, board. For this last item, I'd like to introduce Skylar Murphy, who's our water resources planner. This is Skylar's first board meeting? Presentation. Thank you. So we're excited to have him. Skylar has been a great addition to the district team for several years. He worked in my department when he first came on, and actually when he very first came on, he came in for a short internship under Ron when Ron was the water conservation manager. So Skylar's currently working in the water resources department again, where he first kind of started here with Ron and now under Shelley, and has been the point person and representing the water district on this very large collaborative effort, which is a tongue twister, the Santa Cruz County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. So Skylar is going to give a short presentation and then be available for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. So just brief update on where we are at in the development of this plan. And where we started was back in December 17th, 2024, where the board authorized district staff to participate in the development of this plan with the county and the other participating agencies. And this is really a collaborative effort with a number of public entities throughout the county to put together and develop a hazard mitigation plan that can be used to help reduce loss resulting from natural disasters throughout the county. And I just wanted to make sure to note that the other agencies that are participating with us in this plan are the County of Santa Cruz, who are leading the effort, and then the City of Capitola, City of Scotts Valley, City of Watsonville, the Scotts Valley Water District, the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency, the Resource Conservation District, as well as the Santa Cruz Port District and Cabrillo College. So all together, those are all the agencies that are working on this plan. And then also kind of ultimately what we're building towards is obviously the overarching hazard mitigation plan, but the specific to the district, we're working towards an annex plan that would be kind of built off of the main plan and would be specifically tailored to our needs and hazards of the district. So here on this slide, what you can see where we are here, and this is right basically halfway through the plan development process. And it's worth mentioning here as well that this has been led, like I said, by the county and their Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience. And the planning effort that's to date and throughout the whole planning effort is funded through a Federal Emergency Management Agency grant that was received by the county to the districts. Participation in this is with staff time only. So yeah, where we're at to date is really been focused heavily on public engagement and surveying. Yeah, go to the next slide. So the plan is focused heavily on this engagement, largely to identify unmitigated risks throughout the county, and to also help refine the hazard profiles to most accurately reflect different communities' needs, and then to help shape the strategy and the mitigation that's put forward in this plan to be useful and actionable throughout the county. The project consultant has used a very diverse strategy to maximize public engagement and agency engagement, such as using public surveys, going to public events such as farmers market and other community events, group meetings, workshops, interviews, and individual breakout meetings. And this has really helped get wide participation with 100+ key stakeholders and representation of areas throughout the county, and really making a concerted effort to get representation of all the different demographics that we have throughout Santa Cruz County and the different areas. So they've done a great job of that. And with specific to the district, our participation with outreach has been really relying on our email blasts that go out monthly, and each email blast reaches approximately 17,000 residents. And we also have been sharing updates on the plan through our social media outlets. Next slide. So what are the purpose and benefits of this plan? Why is the district staff participating in this plan? Obviously, it helps reduce long-term hazards and risks to our infrastructure and ultimately benefit to our ratepayers. It helps provide a roadmap to critical capital improvements to reduce risk. It's a collaborative process that helps support a broader and more connected community resilience throughout the county. That's really the goal of bringing all these different public agencies together to create this plan. We can identify ways that we can work together interagency. And I think the last bullet point is, probably the most important one here is that having a hazard mitigation plan such as this is a prerequisite for being eligible for potential FEMA funding should natural disaster occur. Next slide.
I'm going to turn the slides off and then on again. Josh is saying it's not updating, so should I hit stop share, Emma? And then start share again?
I can zoom now. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the plan really identified 10 priority hazards that could face across the county that would be focusing the evaluation and proposed mitigation for. So these include wildfire, flood, earthquake, severe weather, coastal hazards, slope failure, dam failure, drought, and extreme temperature. For climate change, I think it's worth mentioning that that's not necessarily identified or evaluated as an independent hazard. It's more identified how climate change would impact all of the other hazards mentioned above. So it's kind of climate change is evaluated alongside each individual hazard, not as a standalone. And so building off those identified hazards, going through the public surveying process, the consultants use this data to help further hone in what the community feels are their priority hazards. So this is reflective of, survey results of what hazards have people actually experienced in the county, or are they actively most concerned about? So high winds, earthquakes, and drought are really high up on the list, followed closely by extreme heat and wildfire and flooding. And you can go down the list, but this also just further tailors the plan to the concerns of the community. You go next slide.
Yeah, there's wildfire twice.
There is wildfire twice, and I checked. Specific to Soquel Creek Water District, the staff worked off those hazards we mentioned before to further narrow the scope of our study for our area. And the way this was doing to prioritize this was look at the potential for the hazard to occur, and then the potential severity of that impact. So, how likely is it to occur in our area? And if it does occur, what is the potential scale of that impact? So through this exercise, we identified wildfire and earthquake as the highest priority hazards for us to evaluate for the district infrastructure. Then followed by flood, slope failure, and drought. And then finally, coastal hazards, which is encompassing of storm, erosion, wave run-up, storm surge, tsunami. So kind of example of that for wildfires, obviously we have tanks in wildfire-prone areas. So how are our sites susceptible to wildfire events, and what can we do to strengthen their resilience against wildfire? So, and then, how can we coordinate better with central fire for response to wildfire? Similarly, earthquake, how can we improve the resilience of our infrastructure to an earthquake event, including, areas throughout the county, throughout our area that are identified as potential liquefaction zones. Next slide.
I think I would just add, as part of the stakeholder meetings and meetings with the different agency representatives, in addition to looking at our sites to see what kind of threats impact our infrastructure, it's also what happens if our infrastructure is impacted and how that would affect the county as a whole. So, we all know that water is essential to fighting wildfires. Not only as our sites, we want to protect and make sure we have defensible space, but if there are fires out there, we want to make sure that they can depend on our water. So it really heightened a lot of the importance in terms of the priorities of some of our hazards that we identified. And then also through that kind of information gathering that the county did, they looked at a lot of our planning documents. So the district has emergency response plans. We have to prepare required documents, and through those efforts, they also kind of, I think, led into this selection for us.
Yeah, and so really the challenges of creating a plan really is that we want it to be useful and actionable. So the agencies and the consulting team have been striving to create this plan, and this really requires a plan that intersects, the challenges of identifying vulnerable infrastructure while navigating and identifying ever-changing conditions such as climate, and then as well as planning conditions and the funding environment available to fund these types of projects, as well as identifying data gaps and agency capacity gaps, and finally utilizing the planning and policy tools available, as well as identifying new possible opportunities for tools that we aren't currently utilizing. So really cross-cutting across these different challenging areas and building on that to create a useful and functional plan. So where are we now? As we said, we're halfway through the planning process. This has really been the data gathering phase. coming up next will be a release of a public draft in September. The date is, they're targeting the 29th of September as the release of a public draft. And then that would be followed by obviously a public review period. After we, go through the public review, incorporate any public comments on the plan, it would go to the regulatory agencies who ultimately approve this plan from the state and federal level, which is the California Office of Environmental Services and also the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So it goes and sits with them for a while for their review, their comments, and their approval. Following that, the plan would go to the county and all the participating agencies, respective boards, including you guys, and for ultimately the adoption of the plans. So the next touch point and connection with the board here would be February or March of 2026 to receive, an update on the final plan and put it to vote for adoption.
So that's the kind of informational presentation on this item. Thank you, Skylar. This is a slide deck that the county and their consultant have prepared for a lot of the partner agencies to present to their elected officials or appointed committees as a way to get the information out. Several of the entities have already agendized these, have been in the packet. So this is kind of their way of ensuring that the public is receiving this information. We're trying to get as much of the word out as possible, and also to ensure that our elected bodies and our governing boards are part of this process. When we came in, I think at the end of 2024, when we asked the board if you were interested in participating, it does require that all of the entities adopt the plan. So they want to make sure that it is in alignment with where the agency's missions and goals are.
I guess just one clarification. What we would be adopting is our annex plan. So that's where at the beginning there's the parent plan. That's the larger plan that wouldn't necessarily be coming to this board for approval. It would just be our specific annex plan.
All right, now is time for public comment.
Thank you for the presentation, Becky Steinbruner. I attended some of those stakeholder meetings with OR3, and I also took the survey. The survey had a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, and that it kind of came out, and seeing wildfire on there twice in the survey. Initially, wildlife was on there twice, and there was no option to register concern about the prioritization of wildfire. So it's kind of been a flawed process, in my opinion. But they're doing their best, and it's a big, big project. So for Soquel Creek Water District, I am very interested in seeing how the district plans to safeguard and mitigate seismic ruptures of the Pure Water Soquel project conveyance system on the Laurel Street Bridge, and also the attachment to the Porter Bay Avenue Bridge, both going over water bodies, both in seismic areas, and there have been no studies at all on those bridges regarding the impacts of adding those fluid-filled pipes on both sides and altering the bridge themselves. So I will be curious to see how the Soquel Creek Water District does that. And I also want to say that I had the great pleasure of serving on the county's SB 552 Drought Resilience Planning Committee. And so I have a good idea of what this county has to do in terms of drought response and resilience, and hope that the district will link arms with the county in this plan that they've already developed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I will close public comment and open the floor for directors.
So we do have a plan already, right? I mean, we are ad hocing every time there's a flood or from an atmospheric river.
Yeah, the plan that we have in place right now is the emergency response plan, which is very similar. And it's like Melanie said, the county utilized all of our planning documents that we have currently, so we shared those to help tailor this plan. So our emergency response plan drives how we are, responding to these events, and the hazard mitigation plan comes at it from a slightly different perspective of armoring against that. So
Yeah.
it definitely builds off the plans we currently have in place.
And I appreciate making it another comprehensive and involving everybody in our area. Probably make it stronger, but I've always known that we had one. So, good work.
Bruce?
Thanks, Skylar.
Okay, I guess Tom?
Thank you for the effort, and fully support the effort. And I think we have to update. I'm sure there's requirements to update our plans, but I think we should be as proactive as possible, because when a disaster does happen, if we do have a plan, we'll be able to respond. If we don't, it'll be chaos.
I have a question about whether we do any drills or plan to. I know with sewers, in the sewer business, you have to practice for spills, because when it happens, you better know what you're doing, because you don't have time to read the book.
Yeah, and I know our operations and maintenance staff and crew with their weekly safety meetings, they do take the time every month to run through sections of our emergency response plan to specifically go through response scenarios and how to utilize the plans we have in place.
For this plan, or the annex plan, the real key driver is to qualify for FEMA grant funding. If there were ever to be a disaster where we were trying to apply for FEMA funding through hazard mitigation, they require a plan. So that's kind of what I think the big driver for the county to do this. And then, of course, it's been great to be able to collaborate and prepare this annex plan through that grant effort and with staff time, kind of what we call in-kind services. But with in-kind services, it does take a lot of staff time. Skylar has been in a lot of those meetings and spending time on developing this, but we do think it would be a useful tool if we ever need to go for that federal funding.
Well, thank you I'm sure those meetings needed quite a bit of coffee to get through sometimes. So I appreciate that you attended them. Is there any other comment? This is informational only, so there's no recommended action. So that will be it for that item. We are going to be going to closed section.
We do have the management update that got pulled.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I should have put it at the very end instead of right at that item. Thank you. So the management update is for item 4.5. That was yours.
Yeah, sorry, just a couple quick things that I just wanted to know about. On page 54 of 84, under other updates, it just said coordination with operations and engineering on potential uses of the West Annex property. And I just wanted to just ask, when you guys have multiple options you're considering, maybe give us a little update on those at some point, okay? And then the other one, with the country club well, it said that some sampling was going to be done, and I'd love to have the results of that as well. And I was just wondering, do we have to pump the waste to get some of that sampling? Okay, so into Bush Gulch. Okay. Into the gulch that goes out to the ocean. Yeah.
Our current plan is to pump this week,
Okay.
and then we'll reassess when we look at the results.
Yeah. Okay. Just an update when you get that. That's all.
And I think that this gives you an opportunity for public comment. Please come up.
Yes, thank you. This is Becky Steinbrenner. I had a question on engineering report, page 55. It states that the Pure Water SoCal Advanced Treatment Facility landscaping will begin next month. I've seen no plans. And I don't see how any former plans that were presented to the public with the project's approval can work because of the physical barrier of the Chanticleer pedestrian over bicycle. So when will the public and your board see the landscape plan for what is going to start next month at the Pure Water SoCal Project Advanced Water Treatment Plan? I would appreciate an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will close. Vote on, oh, that's right. Thank you. So do we have a
It's just information.
motion, or 4.5 is just information, so we don't have to vote? Okay. Thank you.
What's this information? Oh, that's
Okay, so now we will conduct a closed session. They're not open to the public. However, there's public comment. You have 2 minutes to provide it.
Thank you, Becky Steinbrenner. I am the pro per litigant that has been challenging the Pure Water SoCal project and continuing to do so with the permit approvals of the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board. What I want to say is that I've learned a lot. And what I want to say is I've been very disappointed by the lack of response of the district to many people's concerns about this project. What I also have learned is that the courts are not fair. And that is borne out by the current case that is 25CV00708 that is now before Judge Connolly, who has no training in environmental law. No training in environmental law. And yet she's handling the case. She decided her own disqualification, which is against the law. And those are the sorts of things that happen in the courts. So I want to tell you that my doctor continues to thank me for, as he says, leading the good fight, and continues to warn me, don't drink that water. Don't drink that water. And we have heard that from many physical physicians in the area when we were doing the petitioning against your last rate increase. Many have this opinion. So I hope that you will put the results of all the testing that you are required to do for the public to see on the website. I wish that you would put the EIR available in the public library. It's still not there in the Capitola Public Library. People may want to go and read about this project. The document is not there. And I've asked many times that it be put in. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I ask that all public members exit the meeting room. And I guess the board clerk, clerk of the board, will we'll get the audio set up before we start.